Let's go live. Let's talk about some creative financing. So, welcome everyone. Let's chat about different options for creative financing that Mel and I do. Mel and I, we love creative financing. That's how we buy all of our buildings with other people's money and creative financing ways that we'll be discussing today. So, let me know as people start trickling in here. Start asking your questions. Don't be shy. Right, there's a whole Q&A session as well to go, answer any questions you guys have about creative financing. So basically, the three major ones, well, I should say four now. The three major ones that Mel and I use and that we love, right? Can't stress that enough. I love creative financing. Are first off seller financing. Now, that could mean a lot of different things. I see that term used a lot. So I'll kind of specify a little bit more as to how or what I mean by seller financing. I typically mean like the mortgage. I'm holding a mortgage. Second thing is using people's registered funds. So in Canada, it's registered funds. In the States, it's retirement funds, and basically how to use them. So that's what we love doing as well. Those have to be a mortgage. So love using those. And then the third one is using promissory notes. Now, promissory notes, um, I have seen them used negatively, meaning people did not have an exit strategy, right? Which is so huge in any form of creative financing or other people's money. The exit strategy is the most important part, in my opinion, right? Being able to pay people back is the first. Like if you have a checklist of things when you're looking at a deal, that should be number one. Yeah, obviously you want to buy the right deals in the right locations, in the right make sure that the checklist and the inspections are done. But paying people back is to me is number one for when you're using other people's money. So even if you're using your own money, at some point you're going to want to take it back out anyway and recycle it, right? So anyway, that's why we love doing the exit strategy. And for people that are trickling in, definitely, if you have questions, put them in the chat because that's what today's all about is Q&A about other people's money and how we do it. The fourth way that Mel and I like doing it, we've started doing this recently, is more or less agreement for sale. So AFS. So if you're in Canada, that's what it's called, is agreement for sale, where basically let me touch on a few things here because it's a little different in Canada and it's a little different in US and terms and names are kind of thrown out differently as well. So agreement for sale in Canada, let me start there, is when the current, let's call them the seller, they still own the asset, right? They still have a mortgage on it, they still have ownership of it, and then you basically have a contract, right? Power of attorney on that and a contract controlling the asset where nothing can be done without your consent, because you do have that power of attorney. Now, this is very, very similar to what people call a wrap, a wrap mortgage or wrap financing in the US. And I'm saying that with WRAP, where you literally wrap around. So you contractually control the asset. So in the US, it's mostly called like a wrap. In Canada, it's agreement for sale. Same difference. So that's the fourth one that we like using, and Mel and I are starting to do that more and more, specifically out west in Canada. But yeah, those are the four major creative financing options that we use. Those number one is probably my favorite, the seller financing route. So, and let me explain this. So the seller financing, this is where and I'll explain the benefits, why people actually do this, because I'll get this all the time where I'm talking to people who are either, I'm looking at them holding a mortgage from LRI or people that are joining our Action Family Mentoring program. They're like, why would someone do that? Why would someone hold a mortgage for you? And I will dive into that, okay, because that's a huge um, aspect of it because it benefits them. It's as simple as that. It benefits them. People do things because it benefits them, right? And it's no different with seller financing. But let me describe what I mean by seller financing. So I love having deals where the seller is literally providing me financing. And the way that we like doing it is in the form of vendor take back. Okay, so VTB, you'll hear that too. You'll hear carrybacks. Again, people. Hey, Mohammed, people have different names everywhere. So in the States, I see a lot more, they call it carrybacks. In Canada, I see them calling it VTBs, vendor takebacks. But what it is literally on closing, the seller ends up holding a mortgage for you. So just like, I don't know, let's make it up. Just like Scotiabank would in Canada, or, Bank of America would in the US. It's literally, they are holding a mortgage for you. Okay. And it's either a first mortgage or a second mortgage, right? I've never done a third mortgage. I've only done first and seconds. Mel and I currently hold 4 mortgages, right? So we practice what we preach. We're also on the other side of it too. We sold some assets that were holding the mortgages for 4 different individuals as well. And again, I'll explain why I did that, because it benefits Mel and I. I got it. There you go, Mohammed. You got this. I love it. What was I saying? But that's literally what ends up happening. So, for example, if they're going to hold a first mortgage for you, which is most likely going to be the lion's share of the financing, right? I typically always want my first mortgages to be the biggest portion. Then they have to have the building paid off. So typically, what I'll do for these ones is we'll find those people that have owned them for a long time. Those mom and pops who have had them for like 20, 30 years. Those are going to be people, in my experience. I'm not saying it can't be someone that's owned it for 2 years, but in my experience, it's those mom and pops that have owned it for that 20 to 30 years. They've had it paid off. They have that mindset of, having the things paid off is the best, right? And I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. Some people have different mindsets of having things completely paid off. Some people like having a mortgage. Some people like only having a certain loan to value, so that they have a certain equity in the asset. Mel and I like to, sold mortgages. Mel and I like to, we like having mortgages on our properties because it's a different tax play that we do, right? You want to give the accountants different tax write-offs, and then we leverage those mortgages. But my favorite is, definitely seller financing, the first place mortgages where they have the building paid off and they're willing to hold that first place mortgage for you. That's if I could pick a deal, that would be my deal all the time, right? And then trying to get as high of a loan to value from them as possible, okay? Meaning you have to come up with the least amount of money as possible. So that would be my favorite, I would have to say, I guess. Well, I love them all, actually, seller creative financing. But that, I guess, might be my favorite. Now, you might be thinking, well, Dave, how are you coming up with the down payment? Well, there's a lot of different options as well, right? So in that scenario, you could utilize, if the seller's open to it, right? If they're holding a first place mortgage, you'd have to have a conversation. Hey, what are you okay with? Are you okay with a second mortgage behind you? If they say yes to that, that's where Mel and I like utilizing, again, registered funds in Canada. So your 401, no, that's the state. Sorry, your RSPs, your TFSAs, your LIRAs, or your retirement funds in the US. That's where your 401ks and your IRAs are coming in. Possibly could be a second mortgage, right? And sometimes they'll have caps where they'll only allow you to go to a certain loan to value. So typically it's like 90% loan to value. So you will cap out there. And then the other option that we utilize for our down payments are promissory notes. Again, I know some people, promissory notes are starting to scare them, but again, it's all in the beginning. It's all about the exit strategy. And that's why it sounds so cheesy. And Mel and I are huge on it, but you have to exit the deal before you enter, right? Mel and I have never not, could you say that? We've never not paid an investor back. Anyway, we've always paid investors back. I'll just keep it on that one. But that because we exit the deal before we enter. So whatever type of creative financing it is, we make sure that, hey, we know if we refinance it, we can pay them out. We sell it, we can pay them out, and that there's enough meat on the bone to be able to pay everyone out that we borrowed funds from, and still make a profit, right? Because that's why we're doing all this at the end of the day. So seller financing would definitely be in first place, and that's what I mean by seller financing. Actually, I should talk on second mortgage. Sometimes you will have a seller. So, for example, and guys, Q&A, if you have any questions, don't hesitate. Okay, that's the whole point of today is putting some questions. I see some in here, but I just want to finish my train of thought on the seller financing. Second mortgages from the seller is probably my second favorite. So, for example, let's say a seller has some equity in their asset, but it's not 100% paid off. So let's make up an example here. Let's say you buy a building for $1 million. Okay, you buy $1 million asset, and they agree to hold a second mortgage. And let's say they have a $300,000 mortgage remaining on the property. Okay. So when you close that deal, just like any other deal, right? You'll get financing, you'll get funding. They'll send it to either, the whoever's going to be closing the deal. Again, it depends on if you're doing this in Canada or the States, if it's going to be the lawyer's office, if it's going to be we'll just say whoever's going to be closing the deal for you. Funds will get transferred there and it'll pay out that first initial mortgage, right? So in this made up scenario, right, the $1 million purchase that you're doing, let's say they're holding a second mortgage for $250,000. So they're going to be, your down payment of $250,000, right? So on closing, what would happen to the seller is they would get, and let's say you got a first mortgage from, I don't know, a hard money lender, a credit union, a local financial institution that is okay with creative financing behind them. Okay. So they give, let's just make it up here. They give 75% loan to value. So 750,000, and the seller will hold the down payment of 250K. So on closing, that seller will now receive the $750,000 mortgage, right? They won't receive all of that because on closing, their mortgage of 300, right, in this made up scenario will get paid out. So on closing, they would get the 750 minus the 300 minus all the other fees I'm not including here. I'm just keeping it simple. So they would get, what is that? 450K, right? So they get 450K out of the 750. And then they would be holding, with their equity, they would be holding that second mortgage, right, of $250,000. Again, in this made up scenario. Now, what they end up doing is they forego receiving all of their equity. So that 250K, you're like, well, Dave, what happened? They basically forgo getting that equity. Okay. So on closing, instead of getting that equity from you, they now put in this scenario, a second place or a second charge mortgage. And guys, I'm not an accountant. I'm not a lawyer. Okay. So don't take this as legal advice or accounting advice. I'm just talking about experiences that Mel and I have done. So yeah, and that in this made up scenario, that is exactly what would happen. So the 250K, they don't receive it now. They end up holding a second mortgage, and that gets put in behind. So it's just like a first mortgage, just gets what's the word I want to use here? It gets put on, title or the deed or ownership or in second place. So it gets registered basically after the first one. And now they have a seller financing second mortgage, right? So that is also a viable option when people don't have buildings paid off. We've done that multiple. The building I'm in right now, there's 18 residential apartments above me. We bought this. We own this with seller financing. Pretty much the scenario I'm giving you right now. We bought it with a credit union in the first place that was okay with seller financing. Again, certain ratios had to be there. The seller held a second mortgage. He held, was it 750 or 850? I forget now, but he held over $750,000 second mortgage for us. And then the bank, they only allowed financing to be up to 90%. So we ended up utilizing a promissory note to get into the deal. We've since then refinanced it, paid everyone out. We've refinanced this one probably first time to pay out everyone, I think 2 or 3 times now since 2020, since we've owned it. Yeah. So, okay. So that's the seller financing stuff. Now, again, why would a seller hold financing for you? Okay. Again, because it benefits them. It's as simple as that. If it did not benefit them, they would not do it, in my opinion. Right. So how does it benefit them? Well, and I know some of you might be tuning in and you're like, Dave, I'm in a crazy hot market. Like there's no way a seller would hold a mortgage. They get 50 offers. Like, why would they ever do that? Some sellers will only sell with seller financing. How many times did I say sell there? Some sellers will only sell with seller. Say that 10 times fast. But anyway, what was I getting at? Some people, again, if they understand the tax game and the strategy with deferring their capital gains, like for example, Mel and I said this already earlier, we're holding 4 mortgages. When we sold those buildings, we were only selling those with seller financing. If you came to me and said, I want to do 100% of the purchase price cash offer, I was a no, because that would have hurt me tax-wise, because I was liquidating multiple buildings in a single tax year. And if I got all the money from all the sales, I would be, my tax rate would now be, anyway, and I'm not an accountant, so I won't get into the specifics of that. But again, they do it because it benefits them. And what I mean by that is, In that made up scenario that I did, the $1 million purchase price, and they were holding a $250,000 mortgage. Let's just say they're holding it for a 5-year term. Okay. So for 5 years, and again, don't take this as accounting advice or legal advice, please. Do your own due diligence. I don't have any letters after my name, right? The CPAs and CAs and all that stuff. Talk to the people who have letters after their name. I'm just talking from my experience. But so, for example, in this $250,000 that the seller is now holding as a second mortgage, and let's say they have a 5-year term. So in Canada, you can do it up to 5 years. In the States, it's a little different. But that 250K, they need to get 20% every year. So, or they get taxed on 20% every year. So let's make it up. So instead of getting taxed on $250,000 in the year that they receive the actual money, which might be on top of other money, which now might push them to a higher tax bracket, okay? They now can do 50K a year for 5 years, right? 250K divided by 5. So they'll now get taxed on $50,000, whether they receive it or not, I believe. Again, ask the accountants on the nitty gritty there. But they'll get taxed on that. So 50K added onto their minimum, right? If they get more, they'll get taxed on more. But that's why people do it. That's why Mel and I do it as well, is you get to spread the, you still have to pay the tax. Like there's no way of getting, there's no way to get around that, especially if you're in Canada. There's no 1031 exchange. In the US, it's completely different. If you're buying another asset, you can do the 1031. But in Canada, when you liquidate an asset, there's capital gains. It is what it is, right? So now you can spread it over up to 5 years. 20% a year is what I think you have to take. The other beauty thing, so a couple different things here. So tax deferral, that's a major reason why people do it. This is an investment for them. They now make interest off this, right? Depending what you negotiate in that, but they're now making interest off of this mortgage on a property that they've owned before. They know this deal, right? You're not getting into investing to a new deal that they have to do due diligence on, that they have to analyze and underwrite and all that stuff. You are providing them with an investment opportunity on a deal that they used to own that they've sold to you. And if for any reason you don't pay it back, they'll take it over, right? They get their asset back. And I'm oversimplifying that. There's obviously power of sale and foreclosure and XYZ, and I'm not a lawyer. But it benefits them, right? So they're literally, instead of, okay, think about this. And I'm just going to use the 4 buildings that I'm holding mortgages on right now. So I went from, being an active investor. I'm still an active investor. Mel and I still own hundreds of units, right? What was I saying? But on those particular 4 deals, I literally went from being an active investor to a passive investor, meaning I still own a mortgage on them. And those ones, I believe all 4 are second mortgages. I'd have to look. I believe all 4 are second mortgages. I no longer take care of any of the tenants or the building maintenance, anything like that. And I get my mortgage payment every single month with interest, right? So that, just like I'm doing it for 4 buildings that Mel and I have sold, that's the exact reason why other sellers are doing it, because it benefits them, right? They get the tax deferral, they get the interest that they're making off of you. The other thing too, I'll talk about one scenario. I had a guy who was a teacher. He sold his buildings. One of these stipulations. No, we didn't speculate, but he stipulated one of them we built into the term. He had it where he could not be paid out any earlier than the 3-year mark. So we did a 5-year term, and he said 100%. There's a no prepay clause for the first 3 years. After the 3 years, you can pay me everything, no penalty. Why would they do that? Well, he was a teacher. He was in his last few years of teaching, right? He was going to retire. After that 3rd year, as per our agreement, he was now in retirement, meaning his income was a lot lower. And if he receives that money now, he's not going to get taxed as high. So again, when people do seller financing, right, the sellers, they can, I don't want to use the word manipulate, but you guys can co-create the best win-win scenario. And that's what Mel and I are all about. So it's like, hey, I've had it where, what are we, June? Let's say you're later on in the year. Let's say you're in October, you're September, October-ish. And that seller might say, hey, I'll sell you the building, but let's only close, first couple of weeks in January, once the, title or lawyers or whoever's closing it for you can do so, because it's going to put me into this tax year and it's actually going to benefit me more, right? So you can do different things like that. So basically what I love about it is you find out hey, what do you need? What I need is for you to hold a mortgage for me. You guys negotiate the interest rates together. You guys negotiate the length of the term, the frequency of the payments. We've had some before where we've ballooned it out. So, for example, which one do I want to use here? Well, let's use one of the ones that I sold, okay? Because I accepted a balloon payment because it made sense. So I had given them, I said, this is the purchase price, and I'll hold the mortgage as long as you give me this interest rate. And they said, I can't do it. And I said, that's what I need to make the deal happen. So what we ended up doing, so I was on, the receiving end of this offer, right? Typically Mel and I are the ones, on the offering side of things. But in this particular deal, we said, okay, let's do this. This one is a 3-year term. I think it matures next year. That's right. So we'll get our money back next year. We've been getting interest and payments every month. That's why we do it. But next year, we'll be getting all of the principal or the capital that's owed to us. Now, the cool thing is we're still making interest every month. But I had given them, I said, I want this interest rate. What they said is, I'll give you half of that interest rate that you want every single month, okay, for the next 3 years. And then at the end of the term, it's called ballooning. At the end, balloon, take a visual. At the end of the term, I will pay you the other remaining half of the interest when I refinance or sell the building. So you can do that too. We do it all the time, and that's why we use our cash flow analysis matrix to do so. You're welcome, Mohammed. That's why we use it. So we underwrite the deal, we stress test the deal, we make sure it's sustainable, we make sure it cash flows, and that we have an exit strategy. And in quadrant number 1 of the cash flow analysis matrix, that's literally where the deal goes, and we scrutinize it. Hey, can we give them this purchase price? Can we give them the interest that they're looking for? What does that result in? Oh, I'm negative cash flow. Okay, I can't do that deal the way that it's structured. That's how we go back to the seller and say, Mr. or Mrs. Seller, I can maybe do your purchase price. I can maybe do your purchase price, but I need this interest rate. And I'll literally show them the number. Like, it's not even me. It's just the deal can't sustain it, right? So whether it's me or someone else, I'm showing you how to, that I'm underwriting the deal, and it just doesn't make sense. So it's a lot of times we'll balloon the payment out, right? So sometimes we'll do interest only loans. I love interest only loans, especially when I'm doing a short term. Like, let's say I'm borrowing your money. Okay, you're watching me here on social. I'm borrowing your money, and it's a 1-year term. And let's backtrack. You're the seller financing for a 1-year term, and I've already got my plan. I'm going to go in. I'm going to do some light renovations. I'm going to increase the rent, reduce expenses, and I know after that year that I'm going to either sell the asset and make a profit and pay you out, or I'm going to refinance it and still pay you out and keep it, right? Add it to my portfolio. During that year time, I'm not necessarily as concerned about mortgage pay down or principal recap. Everyone calls it different. Basically, paying down your mortgage. That 1 year and think about it the flip side. Okay, instead of paying down that mortgage, I actually have a YouTube video on this. I don't know if the team can find the link, but that would be cool. Interest only versus, and I'll put the link in the chat if the team can find it. It's basically principal and interest versus interest only payments. But you'll see that 1 year of principal won't be that much substantial in your deal, right? However, on the flip side, if you're paying interest only, that money that you now get to keep in your pocket every single month instead of putting it towards the principal pay down, a lot of deals will only make sense if it's interest only, meaning they only cash flow because they're interest only. If you were starting to put some pay down or pay some pay down there, the deal would be negative. And what I mean by that is at the end of that year, so will your refinance or the proceeds of your sale, if you sell, they'll be a little bit lower, yes, than they would have been if you had put some principal pay down, mortgage pay down. However, you now had more security. I don't know if I want to use that word, but you had more security insurance, whatever you want to call it. You had more cash flow every single month, so that when things came up, you were actually able to sustain, right? You're a little bit to weather the storm a little bit more instead of being a little bit too lean, a little bit too skinny in the deal. And making more money in the end. So interest only is a beautiful way that Mel and I make a lot of deals work. Again, especially when you're just using that creative financing in the beginning. Because the whole point here, like the way that we use it is, it's getting into the asset with the least amount of our own money as possible. Okay, done properly, ethically, morally, legally. Like that's the only way we do it. And knowing that we need to pay them out. Like 12 months, 18 months, 2 years, 3 years. Again, depends on what type of money you're borrowing. If it's promissory note versus RSPs or 401k, or if it's seller financing. But that little short term, 12 months or 18 months, I'm definitely okay not paying down any of the mortgage to get into the deal with very little of my own money. And then having that exit, and then going to, a AAA lender, right? Then going to the A banks and getting as high a loan to value and as low of interest rates as possible. So, but in that beginning, it might be a little more creative, and you might not be, paying down any of your actual mortgage or principal. So it's just another option. It's another tool that we use as well. Um, Something else I wanted to discuss with you guys. Oh, actually, team, put the link. There's the YouTube video. That's awesome. Team, put the link as well. We do have a free webinar on all of this. Mel and I are actually. Mel's right there. Say hi, Mel.
Hi, everyone.
Okay. Oh, it's a note. What was I going to say? We actually have a free webinar coming up tomorrow night. It is at, team, put the link, 8 p.m. Eastern time, I believe. 8 p.m. Eastern time. Mel and I go live. Well, actually, like today, I'm just talking. I'm a talking head today. Tomorrow, we'll actually be showing you numbers, sharing numbers, and we'll literally have examples for each. So, and I still haven't talked about the other two creative financing avenues that we use. Excuse me. But yeah, team, put the link, because we'll show you examples on how we do seller financing. So we'll show you deals that we've got 100% seller financing. We'll show you deals that we've had a first mortgage or a second mortgage from the seller. We'll show you deals that we've used registered or retirement funds, how we did that as well. We'll show you how we use promissory notes as well. And we show you some deals in Costa Rica, flip we did in Costa Rica on short-term rentals. Yeah, check it out, team. Definitely put the link for the webinar, 8 p.m. Eastern. Oh, the other thing too is, even if you cannot make it for whatever reason, you get our replay. So even if you're like, oh, Dave, 8 p.m. doesn't work for me, I got soccer, I got whatever it is, you'll get the replay link. Yeah, so there'll be lots of cool nuggets. Oh no, it's not tomorrow night. What day are we? It's tonight. Webinar is tonight. Thank you, team, for reminding me. Oh my gosh, I'm lost in my days. Webinar is tonight, Wednesday. Gosh, what are we? June 12th. Hey, it's my cousin's birthday. Got to text him. June 12th, we are going to be going live tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern time. So yeah, be there. And like I was saying, if you cannot make it, don't stress about it. Our team is amazing. They'll have a replay link to you in less than 24 hours. I think it's less than a few hours, but I always give them 24 just in case. Yeah, definitely check it out, guys. Let me put the link here too. That way you guys have it. So the other types of seller financing that we really enjoy. Oh, Stefan says, I'm doing it in Dominican Republic. See, that's the beauty of it. Like, creative financing can be done everywhere. So Mel and I, we're currently doing it in 5 different countries, right? Canada, US, Costa Rica, Mexico, and Dominican Republic. 2-3 weeks ago, we just actually closed on a 10 unit. This one's a little different. This is our first time doing it. It's an exciting one. It's a 10 unit boutique hotel in Costa Rica. It's on the West Coast. It is south of Tamarindo. It's like a Huancalal. I butchered it. Huancalal, I think. I'm definitely not pronouncing that correctly. But yeah, I've been doing some updates on our stories and that, showing you pictures. So it's a 10 unit boutique hotel. It's going to be a short-term rental that we're doing. We're actually putting like a little restaurant cafe in it. All 100% other people's money. The seller, okay, again, people think, oh, Dave, this only works in Canada or this only works in US. No, this is a seller finance deal. He's holding the mortgage for 5 years, and he has it where, so this one's a different split. He has it where we give him a certain amount every single year. We make 2 payments a year. What is it again? We give him, on this particular deal, it's $48,000 a year. So twice a year, we pay him $24,000. Of that $24,000, half, of the $24,000, half actually goes to principal recapture. So every single year, we're paying it down by $24,000 out of the $48K. So it's pretty cool. So he's holding that for 5 years. We're going to get this building to appreciate. In my opinion, again, I don't want to overstate, but it's going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars by the time we sell it. Which will be cool. So anyway, check out our stories, guys. We're always doing stories on it, the progress that's going on. It has a nice pool. We're going to be putting in a nice slide there. I got to get the update on that, actually. But yeah, so again, seller financing can be done everywhere. Now, back to the question that I was saying earlier of people will say, Dave, I'm in a super hot market. I'm in a crazy hot market. No one's ever going to hold a mortgage for me. Incorrect. Okay. And that's a mindset thing, guys. I just want to be, Coach Dave here. And that's a mindset thing because, and the reasons I just explained of why it benefits them, that's why they'll do it. Okay. So even if it's in a hot market, right? If it's in Canada, CRA, Canada Revenue Agency, right? It doesn't stipulate, this market or this the deferral doesn't apply in this hot market. No, it doesn't state that. Again, I've never read it, but I've got the accountants who know that know the rules for me. Same with the IRS. It doesn't say, except in this area where the market is super hot, you can't do. It doesn't stipulate that. So it works everywhere. Again, it's just how you do it. But the most important thing is, because I'll see this too, actually. I see a lot of people that find deals. They'll find deals, hey, they don't want any money down, or hey, they're willing to hold financing, or hey, someone's willing to lend me money. Okay. So that's that's the first step in doing other people's money. Yeah, finding deals and finding money and finding, key partners and all that. And good on you guys. I love it. But sometimes and this is what happens. And then you hear the horror stories. They don't know how they're going to pay it back. And that's the worrisome part. Like when Mel and I started doing this, we have 3 kids, right? Mel and I started doing this. I used to be a full-time firefighter. She used to work at our local college. So it's Canada College here in our city, North Bay. And Mel was so worried because I was like, hey, we just found secret sauce. We're going to use other people's money. This is amazing. And she's like, we got 3 kids, Dave. Like, we got to make sure that okay, cool. Buying buildings is fun, but if we can't pay people back, like we're going to be in trouble. So we literally did deep dives. I got goosebumps thinking back of those days because it was literally, okay, we found other people's money. We found creative financing. But how do we pay them back? So we literally interviewed multiple people that had huge portfolios. Okay, we reverse engineer. We found people that didn't do it right. And we went to them and we studied them and we interviewed them. And the overwhelming common theme was they didn't have an exit strategy. Okay, they did not know how they were going to pay it back, or their exit strategy was based on, it was quicksand. You know what I mean? Like they were basing it on 2 things that you cannot control. They were basing it on the market always going up. We just went through a period of time, again, depending on where you're tuning in from, we just went through a period of time where the markets did not go up, right? So we can all attest, hey, that, a couple of years ago, people are like, oh yeah, the market's going to go up forever. We know that that's not the case. So they were basically basing it on the market continuing to go up, which is not an exit strategy. Sometimes people will make a bunch of money in a up market. It's like, well, yeah, okay, but you want to be an investor for the next 30 years. The market isn't always like that. So that's not an exit strategy. The second biggest mistake I found with them, they were hoping on interest rates always staying low or continuing to go down. And again, like we can all attest right now that does not happen, right? Interest rates, actually, does anyone have an announcement on that? Bank of Canada announced last Wednesday that they cut by 0.25 basis. Someone tuning in, can someone let me know if the Fed, did they make the announcement yet? Did the Fed cut today? Did they hold? Like what's yeah, let me know, guys, if someone sees that, please, because I'm curious to see. But again, interest rates historically, right? They don't always just fall there. They fluctuate. So again, when Mel and I we were building out our cash flow analysis matrix, we've actually had a trademark now. The exit was number 1. You have to exit the deal before you enter, and those 2 things, right? The market appreciation continuously going up and interest rates staying lower, going down, are not part of our calculations whatsoever. If it happens, okay, gravy, bonus, awesome, we'll take it, but definitely not part of our calculations because it's just no one can control it. So this works everywhere, anywhere, right? If I even have some real estate agents, they'll say, "Oh yeah, Dave, I know you do that, but it doesn't happen here." And it's again, it does though. It does because the benefits of people holding a mortgage for you, again, as long as it's under the CRA, which is everywhere in Canada, or under the IRS, everywhere in the US, it's allowable. So it's not a per market thing. It's more oh my gosh, relevant Prevalent? Am I saying that correctly? Oh gosh, I'm double guessing myself. Maybe it's more prevalent. There you go. That's why it didn't sound right. More prevalent in some markets than others. I agree with you, but those blanket statements of it doesn't work here, guys. If you're looking for deals, just again, I've heard it enough. Anyway, I don't listen to those anymore. To me, that's a naysayer. There's deals everywhere. Okay, it's mindset is everything. There's deals everywhere. How am I able to find a seller financing deal in Juan Calao, Costa Rica? I've never been to that particular area because it works everywhere. How are we able to do this? In Canada, in the U.S., some places like I've never been to Ohio. We just closed on another deal in Ohio last week. No, 2 weeks ago, a triplex for $72,000. Again, this works all over the place. Okay. The second part that of creative financing is using in Canada. So it's going to be your registered funds, right? RSPs, TFSAs, LIRA, or in the US, your retirement funds. And the actual really cool thing is in the Action Family. The Action Family is our mentoring program. Well, we now have 2,100 members in our Action Family. Mel and I are actually going to do a story on that. If you're following us on social, you'll be seeing a story about that. We have 2,100. I can't believe it. 2,100 members in our Action Family Mentoring Program, which is absolutely amazing. People are posting every day, getting amazing results. Just I couldn't be more proud of them. Love them. So proud of them. Appreciate them. It's absolutely amazing. When Mel and I had our bad car crash in 2018, we almost passed. Oh my gosh, that date passed. It was June 8th. June 8th, 2018. What is that? That's 6 years ago? Anyway, that date passed. Usually every year I remember that date. But we already had 18 properties at that point. Mel was able to quit her job a couple of months after. And that's when we decided to create the Action Family Mentoring Program. I never thought we would have 2,100 members strong of amazing, people. Like it's just, anyway, I'm very humbled by it and appreciate and love everyone in the Action Family. But yeah, in the Action Family, we actually show you, let's say I'll make up two scenarios. Let's say you're in Canada and you have, I'm making it up here, $100,000 in RRSPs. We can show you how you can use it in Canada, but it's kind of a one and done and it's more of a first time home buyer. Yes. But if you want to buy, multiple income properties, we actually have contacts that can help you. You can use your own registered funds to buy something in the States, for example. Let's say, I don't know, you want to buy a short-term rental in Orlando or close to Orlando. We take possession of another one there soon. And actually, I was talking to the accountants about it today and the cross-border attorneys. You want to buy something like that, you can use your own RRSPs or TFSAs or LIRA. Okay. If you want to buy in Costa Rica, you can use your own, right? There's a way of doing it, which again, we have these contacts inside of the Action Family. If you're in the US and you want to use your own 401k or Roth IRA, you can do so as well. You want to buy something in Costa Rica and you have that 100k in your 401k, you can do so. We have the contacts to do it as well. Now, we like using other people's. Like when I quit the fire department, I got a LIRA, locked in retirement account, which we're using for investments. What was I going to say? I like using other people's retirement or registered funds as well. So you can use other people's. It has to be in the form of a mortgage. So for example, this building, no, it wasn't this building. What's an example that I can give you guys for one of them? Well, even our cottage, Mel and I, if you've seen our stories, we take stories at our lake house. It's like 15 minutes from here. That was 100% financed. It was a private lender in first position who gave us, I believe it was 65 or 70% loan to value. And we used someone's RSPs as our down payment. I think she lent us like $90,000 or $100,000. So we put on a second mortgage behind it, 100% finance. And we basically treated it like a flip, except we refinanced it. We had it completely paid out at one point, and then we refinanced it as well. But yeah, so you can do that with RSPs and with 401ks. You can use other people's to fund your deals as well. Just know that it has to be in the form of a mortgage. It's very heavily federally regulated and mandated, which it should be, right? It's people's retirement funds and registered funds, and it has to be in the form of a mortgage. And you can do a first or second mortgage. They typically will max you out at 90% loan to value in Canada anyway. In the US, I've got to talk to the guy again to see if they have implemented that. But what was I going to say? So yeah, we use that all the time. But the really cool thing is you could use your own to buy in Florida or Costa Rica, or if you're in the US, you could use your own to buy in Costa Rica or Mexico or Dominican. It's pretty cool. The third one, promissory notes. Again, I cannot stress enough. Promissory notes definitely should be talking to a securities lawyer or attorney as to how to do it. Definitely have them drafted up. There's things that you have to know and have to do. Again, you want to button up your stuff and make sure that you're not exposing and getting yourself in trouble, right? Like it's yeah. So promissory notes as well. And can't stress it enough that you have to have an exit strategy, right? Or you have to know exactly what you're doing with the funds, or have a deal in place to do something with those funds. So yeah, can't stress that enough. About promissory notes, the agreements for sale I talked about a little bit before, which is basically the AFS is mostly Canadian, mostly out west. I shouldn't say mostly. It works other places as well. Same thing as like a wrap mortgage in the US. So actually, I want to see if that YouTube video is that the YouTube video that's in the link here, guys. Go check it out. That's the one that Mel and I have a bunch of free content on YouTube, but that's the one that I was literally talking about principal and interest versus interest only loans. And you'll see the difference. Like if you look at a mortgage, like go on an amortization calculator, go Google it, look it up and put in a 25 or 30-year mortgage. Okay. If you're in Canada, it's mostly a 25. If you're in the US, it's mostly a 30, but go look up that 25 or 30-year mortgage. What's the word I want to use here? The amount that goes towards your principal, like they take their money first. The bank gets their interest first. And I think the interest stays the lion's share of the payments. And again, I'm just going from memory here. I believe the interest, so if you're looking at the interest portion and you're looking at the principal portion, I think it's almost the 15-year mark. Yeah, I think it's like the 15. Again, I say it in the video, so if I'm off on this, I'm just going from memory. But you pay more interest every single month than you do principal for like the first 15 years. And I'm just talking a typical, you make your payments once a month, that type of thing. So that's why, again, sometimes interest only payments is like, what? Could be a very attractive option. Now, I'm just wondering, has anyone seen if the Fed, or when are they announcing that today? I'm almost curious. Did they announce it? Fed reserve interest rates. About to make another interest rate decision 30 minutes ago. So it doesn't look like they've made it their decision, right? Has anyone seen anything? I just want to see if anyone has seen anything. And okay, let's talk about interest rates as well. People think that interest rates is the end all be all. And again, we're all human. So let me address two things here. We obviously, as humans, we all want the lowest price, right? When you're buying an income producing asset, we all want to pay the lowest price and we all want the lowest interest, right? Which is typically, we think that'll be the best deal. Interest rates, in my opinion, are just one piece of the puzzle. Okay. They're just one piece of the puzzle. And what I mean by that is in 2020, Mel and I bought 119 units in 2020, right? It was another peak year. How many deals have we bought in this year so far? I forgot, I have to count. 2017, we did 12 and 12. Every other year we buy some, but yeah, 2020 was our last, big peak year because we bought 119. And then now we've still been buying every year, but we stabilize the portfolio, right? And I'll talk about that in a second too. It's so important. People think that just hyper growth all the time is the way to success. But in 2020, we bought 119 units. The average interest rate that we were paying on our first place mortgages, which is the lion's share, we were paying 8.5% interest only. In 2020, people were getting below 2% interest rates. So you're like, Dave, that's bananas. Okay, we did not buy just any deal. We bought the deals that made sense. Okay, so again, in 2020, 8.5% interest is what we were paying. Like this deal that I bought here that I'm standing in, it was an 8.5% interest. Now it's still cash flowed. It still made sense. The ratios were still there, and I still had an exit strategy. So I'm just telling you that to say that if you're on the fence and you're thinking, I need to wait until the rates get cut 3 times before I jump in the market, you're losing out on time in the market. Like that is the biggest secret sauce to the wealthy is they stay in the market, right? We buy real estate, like Mel and I, that's one of our biggest things. We own real estate through the ups, the down. Like again, here's the chart, right? The chart goes like this, it goes up, but it's not a straight line. It's but it's continuously going up. And that's the secret is stay or having time in the market. Not trying to time, not trying to go, oh, if this happens, I'm gonna, buy, or if this happens, I'm gonna sell. Like, could you make some money like that? Yeah, and some people do, and that seems very stressful to me is having to time the market because no one can control it. It's time in the market. So that's what I'm saying. Don't let rates. Canada announced last week they cut historically. Once they cut, they typically have other ones after. So fingers crossed. The Fed again. If anyone has an update, if the Fed has announced, guys, let me know, please. But the Fed, hopefully they cut. But it doesn't matter. As investors, when interest rates are up, we buy. When interest rates are down, we buy. Right? It's the long game. It's a marathon. That's just my 2 cents. The other thing I wanted to chat about. The hyper growth. So again, this year is going to be another big year for Mel and I for buying real estate. But something that people don't talk about that I find is everyone is focusing on, hey, I bought this many units this year, or hey, I'm going to do this much, or all of that, which is exciting. It's fun. Yes, not going to lie, buying buildings is a lot of fun, right? If you watch our stories, I get super pumped every time we close one. I'm like a kid, right? It's an awesome feeling. But there's some years that we don't buy as much. And what I mean by that, we're always buying though. Like that's not even a question. We're always buying. But there's some years we don't buy as much. And why? Because it's very, very important to stabilize and reposition your portfolio. Like I can't stress this enough. And this is where I see people get hurt. And this is where I see people get pinched is they're in hyper growth mode. They're too busy focusing on the next acquisition that they leave things crumble behind them. So okay, you're trying to find the next deal over here, but meanwhile, the deal you bought X amount of months ago, is it being properly managed? Are the renovations going along on time? Are all the rent, like, is everything humming along like it should be? Because that's where your energy should be. Because at some point, you're going to need to refinance that or sell it to pay out the creative financing. So some years it's like it might not seem as sexy as hey, buying and buying and buying, but it is a necessary. I don't want to say evil because it's not even evil, but it's necessary in your real estate portfolio. And I think that's another secret sauce of Mel and I is, again, we're always buying, but some years it's like, no, you know what? Let's put off the acquisition side of things. Let's tone down there. Let's still always be looking at deals. We're always looking at deals, but let's tone this side down a little bit more and let's take the repositioning and the getting the assets where they need to be so that we can exit. That all the focus needs to go there for now. So if you are buying some buildings and you're looking on social and you're thinking, oh man, I like, sometimes it's okay to go a little slower. It's okay to reposition your portfolio. It's okay to make sure that things are efficient and that you are on your timelines, because things happen, especially with real estate. Like things happen. Like the timeline on my Ohio one, I think work starts next week. It was supposed to be this week. We took possession last week, so there was a week in between. I think it's starting next week. So again, I'm like, oh, another week. I don't like it, but that happens. That happens with people, with contractors, with renovations. So repositioning your portfolio is definitely important. Guys, we go live tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern, Mel and I. We have a completely free webinar. We're going to be going through, I think, 4 or 5 deals. We break down creative financing. We show you pictures of our deals. We show you renovations before and afters. We talk about how to build out an exit strategy. We talk about the 3 biggest mistakes we see investors make, and then our 4-step system as to how we buy assets. So if you're liking what I'm saying, you're like, hey, I like this guy's talking other people's money. This guy's talking creative financing. He's talking buying real estate. If any of this sounds of interest to you, definitely come see. The link is actually in the chat here. I'm showcasing it as well. Definitely click out the link. It's completely free. If you're saying, Dave, I can't make 8 p.m. tonight Eastern, you'll get the replay link. So it doesn't matter, right? No excuses, right? If you want to start changing your life and you want to start doing things differently, like such as buying real estate, even if you can't make it live, watch the replay, right? You'll just get it won't be live. It's not the end of the world. You'll watch the replay after, okay? The information is the same. So yeah, definitely check that out. I don't see any messages about the Fed, so they must have not announced yet. If someone can, let me know if they see it. But yeah, so yeah, I'm gonna let you guys go. Great chat about creative financing, about other people's money. Make sure you exit the deal before you enter at all times. I will see you guys tonight on the webinar. Again, 8 p.m. Eastern time. Mel and I will both be there. We'll be live. Go through our whole presentation. You'll get to know a little bit more about us, our story, and we'll show you some real live